Hi, and welcome back to the New York Phil Audition Challenge. We're now at week 4, and it's time to continue our look at visualization. Now, I wrote a post about that for week 5 last week, and many of you completed the little writing assignment telling me about your visualizations, and from those I got a sense of, a sample anyway, of how you're visualizing and what you're looking at. And I realized that it's a hard thing to describe and perhaps a hard thing to make a video about too, because you can't see what's going on inside my head and I can't see what's in your head either. Nevertheless, I thought it might be a good idea to walk you through the way that I might visualize. And so I'll go through the pieces that are part of this week's assignment, the one-take, first-take video. We have the very opening of Mozart Concerto, whichever one you're playing. And then we have, yes, Schumann Scherzo, Mahler, and Brahms. So one thing to keep in mind is that visualization, like I said, it's not like looking in the mirror and thinking about what you want to look like. That's wishful thinking or modeling, to put it a little more positively. And that's important to do too. That will help direct your visualization. But visualization is much more specific, and it's about one keyword: awareness. It's about being aware of what's actually happening while you're playing, and being aware of all the sensations that you can muster even when you're just sitting there with no instrument, eyes closed. Are you aware of what's going on in your visualization of the playing? So let's get to a demonstration. So in the Mozart 4, which is the concerto that I usually play in auditions, we all remember the opening. So I would start my visualization as a blank slate. I really, at least one person asked the question, when I visualize, do I actually see myself playing as if I were a camera or a third party? Or do I imagine myself seeing what I would see as myself? And it's the second thing. So if I'm closing my eyes and imagining my Mozart 4, playing it here in this room, in this garage, I imagine being surrounded by all the things I'm surrounded by here in the garage. So I wouldn't see myself. I would see my instrument. I'd see my two hands playing and all that. So in reality, I would sit and do this for probably a good 20, 30 seconds to really experience the opening a few times. So I'll shorten that to just a few seconds. I put my instrument down. I don't even have it in my hands because I don't want to be tempted to make violin motions. So I just sit with quiet hands here, and I imagine myself starting here in rest position, then putting the instrument up and beginning the Mozart 4. So I'll do that now. And in this brief visualization, I actually had a little trouble putting the instrument up. In my visualization, I was doing a lot of this. So that sticks out at me right away. So another thing to remember about visualization, you're not actually trying to change what's in your mental picture, at least while you're doing it. It's not an active element. It's not an active agent of change. You're an active observer in the sense that you're observing your own sensations, but the powerful change comes from within. It can be directed by, as I say, your modeling. We'll get to that in a second. But for right now, all I did was observe that I really seem to be adjusting a lot when I put the instrument up. So I'm going to do this again. And I still did it, but once or twice. I did something like that. That may closely resemble what I actually do in performance. The first thing was weird. I imagined doing it a whole lot, which I don't do. Nevertheless, that can be a clue for later. So I'm going to do this again. So far, I haven't even gotten to play a note, but I'm getting the instrument up. This time in my visualization, I noticed that my bow, I kind of put my bow on the string for a second, touched it to the string, and then reset as if I were ready to play. Not sure why I did that. All right, and now I've played my first couple notes. You see I'm doing this very quickly, and I'm only visualizing the very start. That's partly so you're not staring at me with my eyes closed for too long. And this time I actually got as far as playing a note, but it had quite a lot of, it was pretty crunchy there in the beginning. Now, I would not advise you to interrupt your visualizations as often as I just have. This is to keep this video at least somewhat interesting in a reasonable length. I would encourage you to, if you're going to pick 30 seconds, to do that several times, the whole 30 seconds. And then you can break it down to visualizing more specific moments, which is very helpful. You should also do that. So let's say that I've done several visualizations of the entire thing. I'm comfortable playing through it in my mental image. I'm still noticing lots of strange things. For example, adjusting before I even put it up, or some crunchy notes. So now let's say that first note, I'd like to zero in on that more. So now in my visualization, my violin's already up. I'm not going to worry about that. And I'm just going to visualize myself repeating that first note a few times as if I were doing this. It's going to kind of play as a loop. I'm going to see what I notice about that. I can feel very clearly the sensation of the finger on the string. That left hand seems very, very clear to me. That's a very powerful and present image. It's good for you to notice when an image is just crystal clear. You can feel, you can almost feel it even though you don't have the instrument in your hand. That means that there's a real connection being made. And if you like that image, the one that you're feeling very strongly, there's a great chance that that's exactly the way it's going to go in performance. If you don't like that image, then you've got some work to do. But again, as I say, it's not quite enough to wish it away. We'll get to how to change an image that's kind of embedded. What I did notice just then in my visualization was that as I played that on a loop, my shoulder was coming up for every one, kind of like my left shoulder, I should say, which feels very unnatural as I do it, but nevertheless, that is what was happening in my visualization. So I'm going to do it again now that I can identify that, and I'm sure you can as well, as something that's not helpful in a performance, that wouldn't fit any words or descriptions that I might want to put to my performance. And I also know, just as you probably do, that it's not a very healthy physical habit. So I know I want to change that. But rather than telling myself in my visualization, you've got to keep your shoulder down, that doesn't work. All I'm going to do is do that again, and I'm in my visualization. Now I'm going to focus in on my shoulder and see if it does the same thing this time around in my mental picture. It's still doing it, a little bit less. And so now I might repeat the same thing because sometimes just repeating the visualization while you're focusing on one part of the body or one aspect of the sound, sometimes that's enough to kind of zero it out, to reset it. In this case, I'm going to get more specific. I'm going to see if I can tell in my visualization just when my shoulder rises. Is it right before I play the note? Is it during the down bow? or is it well before? I'm going to see if I can figure out the timing of this. And now it's not the shoulder that's raising anymore. It's my left hand instead. And if I wanted to explore that further, I might. I know that it's, for me, a healthy thing for the left hand to raise up a little bit as my bow meets the string. So I'm kind of liking that picture. And now I'm going to step away from visualization and actually play the opening. So, and when I'm doing this, I'm not trying to copy what was in my visualization. I'm simply playing, and I'm going to be as open to observation as I was when I was visualizing, but I'm not going to try to copy anything or imitate anything. This is just me playing now, which is exactly what I visualized. And as I play a little bit, I feel a tremendous awareness of everything around me. You know, the visualization has prepared me to be open in that way. And so I noticed a couple things in common with the visualization. I noticed that I did adjust a little bit here, which I hadn't realized that before. I'm aware of my left shoulder, my left hand coming up to meet the bow. These are all great things that I like to think of it as money in the bank. You can draw on that when performance moments come. You know, you're kind of blanking out. You want to start to panic a little bit. These are all things, if you've practiced this visualization, these are all things you can come back to. Like, hey, there's, you know, what is panic? I need to be aware of my left shoulder. Let's see if my hand comes up to meet the bow. I can feel that strong picture of the left-hand fingers, and here we go. And it's a repeat of your visualization. So that kind of walks you through the pacing of what I would do. Now I'm going to speed it up. We're going to do the openings of the other selections on this list. The Schumann Scherzo. Now I'm not going to actually visualize so that you don't have to look at me with my eyes closed anymore. But you need to, and then focus on the opening as well when you do that. And now, when I come up to play, I'll tell you the images that I feel most strongly from just hundreds and hundreds of repetitions of this visualization. As I put the instrument up, I can feel a kind of springiness in my hand, even as it approaches the instrument. And it's like a little, kind of a primitive machine, like what if you imagine a video of an early car or a factory, and it's got springs going and they're hooked up to other machines, and you can kind of, there's a sound that goes along with them, like sort of chicka 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 chicka, and you know, it just has a certain speed. It's making pencils or whatever it might be. I can feel that as I put this up. I can feel the bow jumping up into my hand here as well. Some of you might need to be more aware of things in the left hand. Maybe that's what your body is telling you needs to be more refined, the clarity of the picture. For many of you, it will be the right hand, or it could even be the right arm. You may notice things in your visualization about arms and shoulders being out of whack. One thing to pay attention to in the Schumann is your dynamic, your amount of sound. How much sound are you making in your visualization, and how does that match what actually comes out when you play it? For the Mahler, I need to have a very clear picture of the connection between the silence and that first note. So when I visualize that, I listen or sense very carefully the very first sounds that I hear. because it might not be actually the C itself. It may be the sound and the feel of bow hairs on the string, a little bit of this kind of breath noise before the substance of the sound. And I know exactly what that feels like in my visualization and then in real life, that drawing out the breath of the sound that turns into the C. And that makes it so easy to start this. Rather than starting from stiffness or stillness, it's a breath. And finally, in the Brahms, we talked a lot about character already. And so those character words can be your model. But again, the words themselves are not going to be the visualization. The visualization is the visualization. Nothing is more powerful than the mental picture, which includes not just vision, but feel, smell, hearing, all of that. Nothing is more powerful than that. Words are not as powerful as that. So the more clear you can make your picture and your whole sensation, the better. So my character words for the Brahms, joyous, light, buoyant, whatever they may be, they help me refine my mental picture through lots of repetition of the visualization. So, in conclusion, the visuals, the audio, everything that we lump under the term visualization, which is actually all five senses, when that is clear, then for better or worse, that's pretty much what you're going to get in performance. Therefore, if you wish to change the mental picture that you have of a certain spot or a certain selection, then you need to practice the visualization. And that's just as important as physically practicing with the instrument. Because once you can change that picture, then you will be able to translate that with your two hands into sound on the violin. So, I hope this was helpful and clarifies a little bit about what visualization means for me and how it can help you this week and as we go through the rest of the challenge. See you soon. Thanks so much.